What's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So did Tom Dempsey just leave WFG to go over to FFL? I just read an interesting article from PR Newswire and I wanted to share it with you. So if you haven't seen the article yet, I will post it down below, and it's from PR Newsweek talking about Tom Dempsey, who's leaving WFG. He's the former president of WFG. And I had heard some rumors about this, and I had saw some ads posting Tom Dempsey's face and some websites that I went to, and he would be in one of the banners. So I thought it was kind of interesting, decided to find out some more information, and wanted to share with you my opinion about it. And although Tom is going to a new company, it's not directly FFL or Family First Life, if you ever heard of them before, but it is the company that owns or just recently purchased Family First Life. And it was kind of interesting to me because I'm wondering if you guys know anything about the industry. WFG does a big convention coming up here in the next month or so, and I thought it was kind of interesting that the president would leave right before a big event like that. And I wanted to dig into a little bit more to figure out what exactly happened. Did Tom do something wrong? Did he get in trouble? Did he just decide to move? And if so, why? So I started doing a little bit more research into it and started making some phone calls and talking to some people because it genuinely interested me, the way that he did it, how fast it was done, and that he would move maybe to a little bit of a competitor, especially after being in the industry and with Transamerica and Aegon for over 14 years. He had just become president of WFG a couple years ago, I believe right before the pandemic had started, so it's interesting to hear that he has moved. And now, if you don't know who the heck WFG is, or Transamerica or Aegon, let's do a little bit of history. And this is more important not to do the history lesson, but I think so that you can get a better understanding of what this role would actually encompass. So if you're looking to be a president of a major company and you want to apply for WFG, let me just give you my opinion of what I think it would look like to work inside of that role. And then we'll talk a little bit about who Integrity is and maybe why he made the shift. So according to Aegon.com, and that's Aegon's big website, if you've never heard of them, I'm not that surprised, although they are a massive, massive company. They've been around for about 200 years, or at least their roots go back over 200 years. I will put their links down below as well so you can see about the history of the company. But really what's going to be important is that they're one of the 10 largest financial companies in the world. And basically there was a post that was put out where they became one of the 9 largest insurance groups in the entire world, basically required for the stability of the financial world to stay on track. So we're talking massive, massive company. And they work and operate in over 20 different countries, but we're only going to really work on the ones that relate to Transamerica and WFG, since that's really what we're talking about. Now, Aegon owns Transamerica. They purchased them back in 1999. And you would probably be more familiar with Transamerica since that's their brand here in the United States. You would probably know the large Transamerica Tower, the pyramid building that's out in San Francisco. You've probably seen it a million times. If you've ever watched a Marvel movie, they always seem to be in San Francisco, so you'll see the tower in it all the time. And usually when they're crushing some sort of big city, it's always San Francisco. I don't know what that is. So once you see the tower, you can't unsee it. And to give you an idea, a little bit of background about Transamerica, so they've been around for decades. They originally started from what used to be Bank of Italy, and you would probably have no idea who that is. A.P. Giannini, you probably have no idea who he is, but to give you an idea of what that turned into, they became Bank of America. I'm sure you're familiar with them. Bank of America, or back in the day when it was Bank of Italy, started investing in a bunch of different areas. Transamerica started investing in a bunch of different areas like United Artists, you've probably seen movies from them, Transamerica Airlines, Budget Rent-A-Car, you've probably rented a car from them. So they had this massive, massive portfolio all over the United States. And basically what happened in the 80s was they decided to shrink that down to a couple core business principles, that they were going to focus on insurance, investments, and retirement planning. So everything else was kind of sold off, mostly because they saw what was coming with the baby boomer generation retiring, and they knew that there was going to be a huge need for financial services into the future. They were then purchased in 1999 by Aegon. They were then purchased in 1999 by the juggernaut. Transamerica quickly became the largest percentage of the portfolio that Aegon has, and namely because of a ragtag group called WFG. Now, WFG, World Financial Group, started as another company, World Marketing Alliance, which basically one gentleman, Hubert Humphrey, separated from Primerica and started his own company in 1991. Now, that company had some challenges getting off the ground with securities regulations. They were growing very quickly. They were trying to keep all of the regulators happy at the same time, and because of their growth and their expansion, they weren't doing that great of a job at it, but good enough to obviously be able to stay in the industry. But they were fined a few times. They had some challenges because they're trying to grow and develop in this market. They went from about 2,200 licensed agents to over 50,000 licensed agents today. WMA's portfolio was built around basically this company called WRL, who got acquired into Transamerica, and Transamerica saw that the power this company had. They saw how much sales they were doing through this organization, through their other channels, and they ended up acquiring them in 2013. And in 2013, they switched the name to World Financial Group, and it was great partnership for both of them. Transamerica needed a way to be able to sell more products and services, and WMA or WFG needed a way to do a better job on their regulatory side. And because Transamerica was already a very credible, very well-known, well-established brand, they already had the securities side developed into that. So it was kind of a win-win situation for both. Again, Transamerica got the marketing that they needed, and then WFG got the securities regulatory side under wraps, which they needed help with as well. Now to today, WFG offers hundreds of companies. Some of the most well-known companies that you would know of, probably Nationwide, Pacific Life, Prudential, all of the major carriers are run through WFG. Most of them have a specific branch designed specifically to work for WFG and be able to help their agents, because that distribution arm has become bigger than their own. I think in cases like Nationwide, I think WFG actually sells more nationwide than Nationwide does for itself, and that's probably true for a lot of the companies that they carry. And again, why am I telling you all this? Not because you really need to know, but I think that I'm trying to paint a picture of what the president of WFG would have to be able to do, the knowledge that they would have to have, and who they would have to be accountable to. So as I think about it, Tom Dempsey, as president of WFG, probably had 4 or 5, maybe 6 bosses that he had to answer to, because he has to answer to Aegon, which I think in and of itself is probably its own job, because they're being looked at on the global scale, not just what's going on in the US, but what's going on around the world. Then he's got to be scrutinized by the Transamerica group as well, because they have their own security regulations and obviously their own products and services and the ways of doing things. And then you also have WFG, who has its own division, its own home office, its own regulatory things that they do. They cut the checks for their agents. They help basically support the field force. So both Aegon, Transamerica, and WFG have divisions, or they are mostly, or a large portion of them, is going to be completely corporate, meaning there's a hourly pay, they hire people, they're run like a normal company. Then when you look to the other side of WFG, they are run by a field force. So they are independent contractors. Now they operate much like real estate does, where you have brokers and you have agents, but they're independent contractors. They don't have hourly, they're not paid hourly, they don't have salaries, they don't have fixed hours that they work. They have the freedom and the independence to operate the way that they want to, just like real estate would. So combining those worlds, I think, would be really tough, because he's also got to answer to the field force side, which is going to be all of the people who have been here for 30, 40 years that have been in the industry. I'm sure they're very opinionated on how to run the company, because they've been here for so long and they've seen everything, that I'm sure they have a huge stake in how things are run into the field force. So that's almost 4 people right there, or 4 entities that he would have to answer to, not even including the regulatory side of making sure that every state, because every state has its own insurance department, that the company WFG, Transamerica, Aegon, they're doing a good job in each state and they're not having regulatory issues there. And then he's also got to watch the SEC and the FINRA side, because they do securities products, and make sure all of that is on track as well. So to me, it seems like he probably had like 6 or 7 bosses or things that he had to answer to And each one of those by themselves is probably a full-time job. And each one of themselves is probably a full-time job. And then on top of that, the field force is really a 24-hour operation. Those guys work when they want to. I've written a piece of business. I live in Vegas, so that's got to be tough enough as it is. And then you've got to also combine two entirely different worlds, because the corporate side, the way a corporation is run, a business is run, is very different from the way that a field force is run. And they have two entirely different beliefs and thoughts about how to work with people. If you've ever worked a job, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a difference between a manager who tells you what to do and a field leader who teaches you and shows you what to do. Entirely different perspective. One can fire you and tell you to get the heck out if you don't do your job. The other one is to motivate you and show you how to do your job better. Two entirely different processes on how to manage people. You're kind of trying to balance employees and entrepreneurs. You've got to balance regulations and structure and expansion and growth and independence. And those oftentimes can feel like they're at odds with each other. They both need each other and they can't really act well independently, but they kind of have different philosophies on things. Needless to say, it's got to be a lot. I'm sure Tom was making into the 7 figures, but having a chance to kind of meet Tom, I don't really know him that well personally, but I've talked to him a couple times. The guy seems really great. He seems like a salt of the earth kind of guy. The way he talks about his family and the way he talks about his kids. My assumption is, and this is completely my assumption, I don't have any facts to back this up, is that Tom, probably with where he is in his family life right now, was probably more worried about making sure that he was there for them and the amount of time and stress that he had in the WFG position. And that is probably the biggest reason why he decided to move. And I don't blame him. I think that would be a very difficult job to do. I don't know if it's something I personally would even want to do. And I know he was even offered more money to stay, so I don't think it was necessarily a money issue, although Integrity is probably paying him pretty well, maybe even less than what he was making with WFG. However, I'm thinking probably the biggest thing behind it was that the family aspect of it and being there for his kids who are in school. And to me, that's the real reason why he's doing it. And again, that's just my opinion. I don't have any facts on that. Just from what I've heard, the rumors, the speculations, kind of the way that it went down, this is really what I'm seeing. So where did Tom go? He didn't actually go to FFL, Family First Life, but he went to a company who recently purchased FFL. So the company is named Integrity Marketing Group, and basically what they do is marketing for insurance companies. And they've been around for a decade or two, and they purchased FFL in 2020, which makes sense because FFL, Family First Life, their way of doing business is almost entirely through leads, which it makes sense that they would partner with a company like Integrity, who is basically a marketing system, because that's really what FFL is. That's kind of their belief. That's how they got started. From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they focused mostly on generating the leads, and then they started recruiting agents who then could go sell those leads, but they're not actually a financial company, or I don't think they even do payroll themselves. I think payroll goes through the companies that their agents are selling the products through, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way of doing it. So it makes sense that they would be tied into a company like Integrity to help perfect a lot of their marketing issues. So then the question becomes, who is going to become the next president of WFG? This should be interesting, because as you can tell from the dynamics of what I just explained very briefly in this video, it's got to be a tough position to fill. I don't think that just anybody could do that, especially coming from just a corporate side, kind of like Tom did. And I think Tom probably did a good job. He seems like a great guy. But to come from a corporate side and also being able to help handle entrepreneurs, that just seems like a really tough task to be able to do. So it will take somebody pretty special to fill that role. If I've made any errors, please correct me in the comments down below. I'd also love to hear your opinion about it. Don't forget to smash the like button and also hit the subscribe button as well. And we've got some great stuff coming up. Hopefully you've started to notice the podcasts that are coming through and the clips of those. We haven't started the whole podcast channel yet. We'll probably be waiting a little bit for that, but this channel has been growing like crazy. It's been awesome. I appreciate you guys. It's because you're smashing that subscribe button all the time. It's been growing like crazy. It's awesome. And don't forget, we are also going to be launching over $50,000 in giveaways of financial literacy resources, which there is a video out about as well. So make sure you go check that out. And that's not a YouTube thing. That's not a social media thing. That's something that myself and my team have decided that we wanted to do. And we're investing a bunch of money to be able to get these resources out there, because I think especially with what's happening over the next couple of years, people are going to need this information now more than ever. And I think that's going to be really important to get out to people. If that's something that you might be interested in, there is a MailChimp link below. You can also go watch that video and get all the information that you need. But if that was enough information for you, there's a MailChimp link down below, and it will ask you for some of your information. We want to focus on households first, people that are married with kids, because they are probably going to be hit the hardest. They have the least flexibility on some of the things that they can do. So that's really where we want to start. And then we'll start reaching down into other people as well. And we want to make sure that we're sending these resources to actual people, not somebody who thought it was funny just to fill out a form. So we will be reaching out to you and just asking if you did sign up for it, you'd actually like some of this information. So hope that was helpful for you. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Catch you later. Bye.